friends, and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about productivity. And what kind of spurred this idea for me is earlier this week, I got an email from one of our managers, and it went out to a bunch of the managers, and it was called Prioritize Like a Pro. And so, like most of these good advice emails, I took a look at it, and I thought it was really good, but I'm not going to talk about that today. It was really good in the way that it kind of had a flow chart on how to, make decisions and prioritize, kind of a way of making some lists in order to organize your thoughts on what's the highest priority, so on and so forth. But what it really made me do is think about a book that I've talked about on this podcast before, but I want to take a little bit deeper dive today. And this is a book that literally changed my life. Look, like most salespeople, I am not the most organized individual, nor am I super interested in following some, very structured way. It's not like I can just all of a sudden become organized, because that's just not the way that my brain thinks. But the one author and book and system that did resonate with me was a gentleman named David Allen, and he wrote a book called Getting Things Done. And I do have some notes here because I want to make sure that I can break this down in a way that you can absorb, and I don't want to miss any of the details here. As oftentimes I don't do a lot of notes on this podcast, but I want to make sure I do this some justice and really walk you through it sequentially. But I also recommend that you go out and read this book. Now, I'm going to try to emphasize what I think are the most important parts of what I learned from this book and the things that I implemented that made a pretty significant shift. But honestly, I think after preparing for this podcast, I am going to go back and re-listen to that book. And I say listen because I consume most of the books that I read via audio. And so this is probably one to circle back on, one that you could probably listen to a few times. My guess is with the framework that I have in place today, going back and re-listening to this might bring in some other details that I could easily add to the system. But look, this is not rocket science, but it is profound. At least it was for me when I adopted this. Now, getting things done is not just a productivity kind of methodology. I mean, it is that, but it's really acknowledging the fact that our brains are really geared towards coming up with ideas, right? We are thinkers. That's our highest and best use. What our brain is not very good at is holding on to information, especially when we create open loops for ourselves. And when we commit to somebody that we're going to do something, and then essentially that just throws out an open loop. And until that loop closes, our brain randomly reminds us that we have to do that thing, and it occupies more of our mental energy than we actually give credit to. And you guys, if you're like me, we do this all the time. We're constantly creating open loops that are, believe it or not, they're taking slices of your mental capacity and they're leaving them out there with these unfinished tasks. And so this is more than just a methodology. It's a mind shift in recognizing that our brains are good at certain things, and let's keep them on task with the things that they're good at. And then let's build an external system in order to capture all the things that we actually need to get done. Hence the name of the book, Getting Things Done. The real goal here is to clear your mind, to be able to do the things that it's best at, as I said. So let's jump a little bit into understanding the Getting Things Done, the GTD, as they refer to it, workflow, so that you can have a little bit better context on how this works. And then I'm going to emphasize, as I said, a few key points, and we're going to keep this as short of a conversation as possible. Hopefully, you can walk away from this podcast episode with some actionable items that you could start doing immediately to increase your productivity. And hopefully, one of the things that you put on your list of things to do is go and watch or listen or read this book and implement its best practices into your life and business, because it will help you significantly. So the first thing about the workflow is capture. So there's got to be a way of capturing all of the information that's coming at you. So if you think about, your desk, if you think about being at work, I don't know if people have these here still today, but you always had an inbox, right? So if there was stuff you needed to do, people would come in and they'd put it in your inbox and you'd work your way through your inbox. But the reality is things don't always land in your inbox in the chronological order that they need to get done. But at least, if nothing else, there's an inbox. So we have to create an inbox for all the things that we have to do. Now that could be the notes section on your phone. There's a number of apps today that you could download to help you capture the things that you need to do. But in one way or another, there has to be an inbox. Just like in your email, there's an inbox. It's probably a mess. But nonetheless, there is something there that's capturing every email, but not everything comes to us via email. They come in all different forms and fashion. So how do we create an inbox? That's the first step, is making sure that everything is in one place. The second step is getting clarity. So of the things that land in your inbox, how important are those things to do? So if they're not important, well, then they just need to go in the circle file and go in the garbage, go in the trash, like get rid of them. You don't even need to think about them. Or they need to be incubated, right? So they need to be something that you can, put aside, but that you're going to get to later. So that would be an incubation task. It's like, I can't do it right now. It is important, so I'm going to put it in a place where I stumble across it at my next available opportunity so that it can get done in a timely manner. So that would be the incubate, and the last one is reference. This is an important piece of information, but it's not something I need to take action on necessarily, but it's like a reference material. So I'm going to put that in a place where I can easily reference this for future needs or follow-up conversations or whatever, right? So trash, incubate, or reference is kind of how we clarify these tasks. And then organize. Are these projects? A lot of things that we think are just a thing that we need to do, it's really not a thing we need to do. It's a series of things that we need to do, and that would be considered a project. So anything that's more than one actionable step is really a project. So like the example would be, you want to go on vacation. And so you put down a task like plan for vacation. Well, that's not really a one-step thing, right? I mean, the first step is maybe review flights to see if the times even work. Or maybe it's just reach out to a travel agent. Whatever that next action step is the next action. The project becomes planning for our vacation, right? So we got to separate these things into, are they actual projects or are they really just tasks? And that's the first step, is separating those appropriately into the right category. Or are these just things that I'm waiting for? Like I'm waiting for someone else to get back to me. That's not something I need to take action on, but I might want to set myself a reminder about that. Or is this something that is taking place 2 months down the road, and I just want to make sure I put it on my calendar? Those would be calendar type things. So organizing them into projects, next actions, waiting for, or calendar. And then you got to make sure that you reflect back on this information. So once you have a system built where you have an inbox, you have a process of creating clarity on the things that you need to do, you are creating either next actions and or projects, then you need to review them on a regular basis. And that means just setting up a time of the week where you're going through and reviewing your system. And then the last piece is to engage with those activities, right? So take action on the things that you've identified are your next action steps. So that's the workflow. Let's talk a little bit about breaking down into each of these and how you actually get that accomplished. So one of the main core principles of David Allen's book is this idea of mind like water. Now, one thing I loved about David Allen, and maybe this is part of the reason why it resonated with me so much, is because he was really into the martial arts. And I was also in the martial arts for most of my childhood and partly into my adult life. I'm a black belt, second-degree black belt in karate, and I've always been into martial arts and those disciplines. And one of the things that is talked about a lot in martial arts is this idea of mind like water. And water is such a powerful element. I mean, it can, carve the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, a drop of water over time can cut through stone, things of that nature. But really what David Allen was referencing when he said mind like water is that I think a better analogy is think about a lake, okay? You got a calm lake filled with water, obviously. And if you throw a big rock into the lake, it's going to make an appropriate large splash when that rock hits it. But if you just throw a little pebble, it's going to make an appropriately small little ripple, maybe. And that's all. It doesn't overreact to what's happening to it. You don't throw a pebble in a lake and get a big, huge splash. But how often do we have little pebbles come at us? And because we're not in the right mindset, it becomes a big splash, right? We overreact to little tiny things because we don't have a mind like water. And that's really the mental state that we're looking for if we want to be highly effective at what we do, especially in the high stress jobs that we have in the mortgage and real estate industry, is take the appropriate amount of action when something comes at you. So mind like water is a really cool principle. And I think the analogy of the lake really gives you some clarity as to what he meant by that. This one is probably the biggest takeaway that made an immediate impact on my life. In the book, he talks about what's called the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule, I've talked about it on this podcast because it means so much to me. But if you don't take anything away from this whole conversation that we're having here today, at least take this one away, the 2-minute rule. And essentially what it says is that if a task comes to you and it can be done within 2 minutes, that you should just do it right then immediately. Just do it right then. And so many times there's like a little tiny project. Like just yesterday, I was walking up the stairs to go up to my bedroom and there was a pair of shoes sitting there. And I'm like, oh, I can do that later. I can put those away later. But I'm like, it takes me like literally 15 seconds to put those shoes away. So it's like, do it now, There's so many things, you guys. And if you really let this 2-minute rule like absorb into you and you really think about it, there's going to be so many things that you don't do that you could have done in just a couple seconds or a minute or maybe 2 minutes that we just put off. We just procrastinate. Not everybody. I mean, maybe my wife would have picked up the shoes, but for me, it's not really my nature. I would have just, procrastinated on that. I'll do that later. Not a big deal. It's no big deal. I'll do it later. We say that about so many things, but you guys, believe it or not, we're creating open loops every time that we do that. And it's not like I sit there and lay awake at night going, man, those shoes are still sitting on my stairs. But believe it or not, all these little things add up. And so the 2-minute rule is really about just taking action on the things that you can do immediately. And that alone is a huge productivity hack, and I can't emphasize it enough, the 2-minute rule. Now, we talked earlier about projects versus next actions. So this is a really key thing that we have to do when we are making our lists of what to do. We need to break them down into projects and next actions. And then our next actions, we're going to talk about how we organize our next actions here in a second. But really, we're just taking one of the next actions from a project and putting that into a category of when we might take action on that based on our availability within our day, our schedule, etc. But the main thing is recognizing that many things that we think are actions or things I got to do really aren't just a thing. They're a project, and they're going to require multiple steps to get them accomplished. And if you don't categorize them properly, then you might take the first step in that project. But if you have not captured the fact that it's an ongoing project until such time that it's completed, you've just created another open loop in your life. You think you were productive, you got one part of it crossed off the list, and you didn't even identify what the next action step was. So it is a key fundamental of the getting things done workflow to make sure that you're clearly identifying what are projects and what are next actions, and then putting the next actions in front of you when you actually have the time to do them. So let's talk about that for a second. Your lists want to be, these next action lists want to be broken into context. What do I mean by context? Well, when would you actually have the ability to do them? So let me give you a few examples. When you're at your office at work, there's probably certain things that you can only do at your office, right? Matter of fact, people oftentimes are like, hey, can you get me that thing or get me that information? Like, yeah, as soon as I get back to my office, I'll get that over to you. Okay, that's clearly in the category of things I can do at my office. So as you look through your inbox and identify all the things you need to do, some things can only be done when you're at your office. So why think about them when you're in your car or when you're out running errands? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So have a category of these are things I can do when I'm sitting at my desk at my office. Another example, phone. Like, if all I have is my phone, what can I get done on my list? I don't need my office. I don't need my computer. I don't need any notes, but there's probably things that I could just do. There's phone calls I need to make that I've made commitments that I'm going to do. So what do I do when I just have some time with my phone? Maybe I'm waiting for something. I'm in a waiting room, or I'm early for an appointment. I'm driving. All these times when we can get to our phone, but we may not be able to get to all these other things. Those are things that would go on your phone list. And then at your computer, maybe you're not at your office, but you have your laptop with you. You have some downtime. You're on a flight, as an example. You're on a flight. You have your computer. What are some things that you've identified can get done when you're sitting at your computer? And then another example would be like errands, right? So what is something when I'm out running errands that I know that I can get done? I put that on my errands list. So when I have some time, or I have a really important errand I need to go run, I go, what else is on my errands list that I need to get done this week? And capture that. So it's really about organizing your tasks, your next actions into context so that you can take action on them when you're in the environment where you can actually complete them. And then when you find yourself in one of those places, your office, or just with your phone or with your computer available, that you can pull up your list and say, okay, what did I identify during my weekly review that I need to do when I'm sitting at my computer? And it helps us, boom, stay right on task. The other thing that happens, you guys, by organizing your list this way is that these open loops that I talked about, they come back to you at the worst times. When you're sitting there watching TV and all of a sudden you have something flies back into your brain that you needed to do that you didn't get done that day. And immediately we're stressed. We're supposed to be here relaxing, chilling, watching Netflix, and all of a sudden I'm stressed about that person that I said I would get back to them, and I didn't get back to them. Now I might be sending them an email at 9:30 at night. Oh, hey, sorry, I didn't get back to you, whatever, right? Because we want to clear our conscience. Those are the things we want to keep from happening in our lives. And the way to do that is by creating these systems, or worse yet, when you're laying in bed, right? Like, you're laying in bed and these things come to you and you realize, like, oh shit, now you're stressed out, now you're not sleeping. It's probably a good idea. I don't know if he talks about this in the book, but this is another good idea. Just keep a notepad and paper next to your bed, like on your nightstand. So when these random ideas come to you, you can jot them down and then make sure they get into your inbox in your system to be captured later. And then that'll help you go to sleep. And another little hack there for you. I also mentioned weekly review. What I would do is schedule a weekly review on when you're going to go through everything on your list. Now, I always did this on Sunday. I know that that's not the easiest thing to do, depending on your weekends and what you got going on with your family. So maybe it's Monday morning, maybe it's Friday at the end of the day, like making sure that you're all set for the following week. Whatever it is, just make sure that you're scheduling some time to have a weekly review, to reorganize the things that you got done, that you didn't get done. And as this type of a system is new to you, it's going to be important to see, like, is it working? Did I put things in the right category? Did I put things that I want to do when I have phone time that I really should have put at the office because I have more time at the office to get things done, etc. So it'll take you a little bit of time to get used to how the system works, and a weekly review or even a more frequent review of how you're doing, at least initially, is going to help you trust this system. Because at the end of the day, you got to trust it. So that way you can feel like once you put something into your inbox, it's going to go through your workflow and it's captured forever. It's going to get done one way or another. You've identified that. And the goal here, you guys, is to really create mental freedom. It's not necessarily to increase your productivity. It's not about saving time. People talk about time management. People talk about, these things, productivity. It's really, what it's really about is getting things out of your head that your brain is not good at. And that primary thing is trying to remember what to do and when to do it. So creating a system to manage that for you so that your brain is available for highly creative thinking, problem solving, interacting with people, uninterrupted by random thoughts that come in. And yes, relaxing, because we all need downtime, and your downtime should not feel like you're stressed out because you're not doing things you should be doing, because you would have organized when you were going to do those things. So you guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. This was a little bit deeper dive into the Getting Things Done book, and I hope that it resonates with you. I hope that if anything, you take away the 2-minute rule, and the next time you look at something that can get done in 2 minutes and you decide to walk away anyway, that you feel bad about it. Because I want that for you, because that's how I feel, because I read this book and it's so ingrained in me that like the guilt alone makes me go back and get it done. So anyways, it's a great book, you guys. The audio book is phenomenal as well. So check out David Allen and Getting Things Done. And more than anything, the reason I talk about this kind of stuff is because in order to be highly successful, in order to grow your business, gain market share, as this podcast is named after, you need to incorporate things like this into your life and your business to get you to the next level. And if you're a person like me who is self-proclaimed ADD, I'm a great communicator, but I'm not super organized. If you label yourself with any of those things, then my guess is you're as challenged with this as I was. And for me, this book and this idea and this philosophy completely changed my life, and I think helped me get to the level of success in business that I've been able to achieve. I hope it does the same for you. If you enjoy this content, please let people know about it, right? Share market shares with people in the industry that you think would benefit from what we do here. We have some great interviews and other conversations, and once in a while we throw in some self-help, like the Getting Things Done overview. Consider subscribing to the channel. And for those of you that don't know, we come out with a new episode every single Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And so check those out, and I will see you then. Take care.